My Side of the Bag, sponsored by Birdie Brands, Uncle Keith's Red Sauce. And thanks to everybody tuning in from the Back Nine Brief. I'm Drew Hinesley. He's Scotty Worldwide.
What's happening, Drew?
I think we've got a little breaking news on the LPGA today.
We have some great news today. I know I started one of these shows in a rant about how we haven't got anything, how we went to our first major, haven't got anything. But today, Craig Kessler, who was former COO of the PGA of America, was named the new commissioner of the LPGA starting on July 15th. And Drew, I couldn't be more excited. I think this is a rock star hire. I think this is 100% the right guy from SoCal. Went to Georgetown for school, now makes his home in Dallas. Has been a CEO before, has been a COO before. Going to turn 40 years old next week. I think we're looking at a young Mike Wan. Never forget, Mike Wan was 44 when he took over the commissioner job. Now Greg Kessler going to be 40 when he takes over the job. So I think someone that can stay here for a long, long time and someone that can build the LPGA into what it can be for the next 75 years.
If he's half as good as Mike Wan, he'll be a very successful commissioner.
I agree. I came under Mike Wan. I thought he was some of the best leadership I've ever seen. I came in the COVID year, which was very challenging for commissioners. And I know some people always didn't see eye to eye with Mike, but man, he told you what was going to happen, and it happened. And that, I think, is leadership.
Well, and also now as the CEO of the USGA, Mike is leading the cause in getting women's purses in a somewhat comparable neighborhood at the majors to what the men see, leading with Women's US Open. He sold sponsorship on the bibs, on commercials, but that was what you had to do to get the monies where people thought they should be for a major for the women, and the other entities involved have had to kind of match that and follow suit. So Mike Wan, while he was commissioner and even after his commissionership at the LPGA, continuing to lead the women's game in the right direction. Let's hope this guy has a similar impact.
Yeah, I'm not going to take shots today at Molly because I think we're past that and we've voiced our gripes. But I do think it's important that we got someone in golf that has built organizations in golf in this role. I like everything he said today on the press release. He talked about how we have to optimize the schedule, how we have to tell these athletes' stories better. So I think he just gets it from a golf standpoint and how important is the golf, how important the fan experience is for golf. And I think, again, I'm not naming names or pulling punches, but I think he gets certain things that I don't think Molly ever would have.
Well, for those that aren't completely in the weeds with pro golf like we are, Molly, the former commissioner of the LPGA Tour, came from an administrative role at Princeton into the LPGA. And I felt personally like she tried to manage the LPGA like she was still in academia, like she had an athletic director, like she had individual coaches to kind of micromanage their teams and she could be hands off. And that wasn't quite the way the role I think should be navigated. And so, like you say, hopefully we've got somebody that understands the game a little better. Molly, to her credit, I saw her many times in player dining off in the corner with very important players, very important sponsors, trying to get things done. But having somebody within the game is a huge leap forward. I think my only gripe, and you know this, is I felt like Alex Baldwin, the woman who runs the Corn Ferry Tour, I thought, wow, a female who's already running a leg of the PGA Tour behemoth, that would be such an easy transition for Alex. So I thought she was the leader in the clubhouse during the search. You obviously like this choice a lot. I will leave my opinion out of it as far as what I think should have happened, but and I have a wait and see attitude about this guy, and hopefully he just makes the changes that we need to make, gets better sponsors. We've had the conversation about the Fortune 500 with female CEOs. That's low hanging fruit, it seems to me.
Yeah.
Let's go hit those places. Let's go hit all the different, Austin, Texas has a lot of female tech CEOs. Why aren't we playing a tournament in Austin, Texas, with the college program they have there? No major sports team. It just seems like a great city for women's golf to land. Maybe somebody will figure those things out. And Scotty, tell this guy he can come on the show and talk to us because we've got plenty of ideas to give
Well,
him.
he's not a caddy, so we're not gonna have him on. But
Well, he could be our
unless
first non-caddy. I mean,
yeah,
we've been floating that idea.
unless you want to make an exception, but I think it's pretty cool that you've got to pick up a bag and have a bib to be on this show. But
I
we'll
like
just leave
that.
it at that. I think a couple challenges to your point, Alex. Yeah, Alex, I think she's done a good job with the Corn Ferry, but I don't know if she's ready for this. Right? I mean, Corn Ferry's still playing for $1 million a week.
That has more to do with the way the brain trust at PGA Tour HQ thinks. And years ago, they've made the statement, we don't want this to be a destination. They don't want AAA to be so lucrative that guys can actually afford
Oh God!
to enrich themselves
Oh
there. Yeah,
God!
and as a caddy, a guy who's only making 10% of what players are
Right?
making off of those purses, listen, I understand how ludicrous that can sound, but the thought is there, but they're still playing, I think, for the same purses today in 2025 they were playing for 6 7 years ago, and the cost of living has dramatically increased. Everybody watching the show knows that. So it is, I honestly, in full disclosure, I've turned down 4 jobs on the Corn Ferry this year simply because I can't afford it. My
Yeah.
family can't afford. I would love to go out there and help somebody get a PGA Tour card and then be at the Sony Open with somebody in January. That is, I think, what we're all trying to do is kind of find somebody and bring them up the ladder. Unfortunately, in order to do that, I'd have to take on more debt than I'm willing to take on, and also probably more than I could pay back in the reasonable amount of time before it
Totally.
begins building. Financial, problems exist just by saying yes to a job out there, and it's a very sad state. But there's guys I want to go help, and I just can't afford to do it.
Yeah, no doubt. The only thing, and if I can nitty pick here on things that I don't like, is there's players that teed off in Mexico this morning, not knowing who the next commissioner was. And then
Correct.
5 hours later, when they finish their round, they're the very, very last to know. So why wasn't this given an email to membership last night that says, here's our candidate named Craig Kessler. We'll put out the thing tomorrow. I just think, man, you had an opportunity to communicate this to your membership, and there's players that pay to be part of this organization, and they're the last to know. That to me is like same old LPGA, same old communication tricks. So I hope that gets disbanded, and we can correct on that. Because I tell you what, if it would have been Mike Wan would have told you a week ago that when there was an off week, who was going to be the next commissioner, and he would say, just don't leak it to the press. And if you do, you do. They'll find out anyways.
I'd like to know, is the guy in Mexico at the LPGA event as he takes over? I know he's taking over July 15th. Is that what I hear?
He's not. I believe his first event's going to be the KPMG, which also is a little interesting that he's not coming next week to the U.S. Open. I thought was interesting.
Well, maybe that will change when a PR department gets a hold of what happened today and they say, hey, you've got to show your face at one of the biggest events on the calendar.
Like don't be
Just a
there
meet
for
and greet.
Yeah, don't be there on any official business. Don't
Yeah.
talk anything, but
Shaking hands.
just go shake hands, right? And sit with
Yeah.
Liz for an hour. Sit with Liz and just watch.
Yeah. Well, and go and just, maybe go see Nelly Korda hit a shot. Go see Charlie Hull hit a shot. Go see Minji Lee hit a shot. Walk a fairway with Lydia Ko. And just get some feedback from them since they're the face of the game.
I agree. I hope that changes. I hope I see him in Aaron Hills next week. So, but
Yeah.
all in all, I think this is great for the LPGA. We have leader now. We have an agenda. We have someone that I think wants player feedback, that's open, that gets the game on the grandest stage. And he talked about it today in his press conference. He talked about how their greatest assets, the players, and they're going to lead this tour with their wants, dreams, and desires. So
that's great. And maybe he can hire somebody to make a schedule that owns a globe, and we can do some geographic planning as part of the schedule.
So again, I don't want to take any shots. Ricky Lashley, who's in charge of the schedule at the LPGA, but he talked about very specifically how the schedule needs to be optimized and
Yeah.
sitting down and figuring out what he can do. And I hope what that means is that if people want to pay $1.7 million to us to go to ShopRite, he can say, no, we're not going. And we're going to find some other place to play geography that makes sense.
Well, and maybe the two events in LA are back-to-back weeks, just something crazy like that.
You would think, right?
Again, we just let's congratulate the new commissioner and hope they get some great minds behind the whole product that is the LPGA. There's so much there to market. There's so much there to capitalize on in this day and age of media influencers, social media influencers. The fact that you don't have people monetizing their images from women's golf inside the ropes as pros, that again, low hanging fruit. We got to figure that out.
Agreed. Totally
All
agree.
right. Huge upset
Woo!
in women's NCAA golf championship at Omni Resort and Spa in La Costa, California. Stroke play portion, it was Stanford by miles. Those five players combined to beat everybody else. I don't even know what the margin was. I want to say 20 shots,
I think it was
something like
19. Yeah.
okay, 19 shots. Nobody's going to beat Stanford, right?
Mhm.
Wrong. Northwestern, not only do they beat a very talented Oregon team, Coach D, after he beats his old boss in Laura Eleno at Texas, he runs into Northwestern and Kira Romero. I believe Kira won her match, but Oregon lost as a team. I can't recall exactly, but we're big fans of Kira Romero here on my side of the bag. And then they beat Stanford. So beat Oregon, beat Stanford, semis and finals. Northwestern, their first national championship. Congratulations.
Like we were talking a little bit before the show, you could make an argument before yesterday that Stanford had an opportunity to be the best women's golf team of all time. They didn't lose in stroke play. They had the best 72 hole performance in the NCAAs at 27 under. That is crazy. And then they get to match play, and Northwestern just wouldn't go away all day, hung in there. They won critical two matches in the back end of it. And then, the local kid that's 20 miles outside of San Diego, Carlsbad, Diana Lee, hits that putt, makes par, and game over. And you're Northwestern or your national champions. And man, no, I don't think anyone saw this coming. You saw maybe in Oregon or maybe a Texas or maybe if USC got hot and Jasmine and Kathleen played okay. But you certainly didn't see this from Northwestern. It's their first national title. And I just can't say enough to those kids in that locker room and the coaching staff that going up against literally Goliath, and they believe that they could do something, and they got the job done, and hats off to them.
Well, and I can't wait to congratulate them in person at the East Lake Cup Halloween week. They will certainly come and enjoy that, a match play event to end their fall schedule. Ann and Stanford have traditionally last couple of years not come to Atlanta.
Correct.
We'll see if maybe they want to come, maybe exact a little bit of revenge this year. And of course, Coach D will be there with Oregon. So I'm excited to see these women's teams and see Northwestern, I think, for the first time at the East Lake Cup.
Yeah.
I don't know if they've ever made the semis before at the NCAA's. I'll probably should do a little more research on that before October. But congratulations to Northwestern, your women's Division I national champions. And now they clear the stage, and now we make way for the men
Correct.
at La Costa. They're going to play the same venue. So the course, I would think, is getting a little crusty out there in Southern California. Have you had a lot of weather to soften it up?
No, it doesn't rain a whole lot in June and May, but so it doesn't. And let's now remember these are fairly new greens,
Right. So
fairly new
they're
redesigned golf
getting
course.
really
So
crusty.
they don't hold, and they're not that receptive to begin with. So
Right.
so yeah, I think by Saturday, Friday afternoon tomorrow, like it could be very, very firm out there, especially trying to hold some of those greens out of the rough or into par fives. We're hitting a longer club. I did I was on the grounds on Sunday for the stroke play. I did see a lot of ladies hitting a lot of wedges. It felt like a lot of driver wedges from my perspective. But hey, it is what it is. Everyone plays the
Well,
same game. So
yeah, I mean, but that's how they set up the women. I know for the East Lake Cup, the Georgia State Golf Association sets it up, and I feel like they just really go out of their way to not make the women hit hybrids and woods. And there's a couple of holes where I really think they could back them up 50, 60 yards and make it a better hole for the women. The men obviously are, one step off the back of the championship tees. But yeah, I would like to see a little more length in the women's game. You and I have these arguments, not just on par threes, but fours and fives as well. If I'm a long hitter, I want to be able to get there in two, and I want to have that advantage because the shorter hitters are going to have their advantages with enough wedges into some of these handcuff par
yeah,
fours. So,
yeah.
yeah, there will be plenty of length for the men. I'm not worried about that. Who are you looking at for the men, maybe as the favorites going in? Because I feel like there's not really a clear cut favorite this time.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think it's kind of all over the place. And I think anyone could win. To be honest with you, I think Texas could definitely take it home. I think North Carolina could easily take it home.
When North Carolina did not qualify,
They did.
surprisingly enough. That's the huge news.
Okay.
David Ford,
Yes.
the number one amateur, he's probably going to finish number one in PGA Tour U. He's making his professional debut today at Colonial
Okay.
because
Okay. So
North
he's not even
Carolina.
playing as an individual.
No, he's not playing as an individual, and there was a
Okay.
little bit of controversy about that. The guy that's number one in PGA Tour U is not even playing the NCAA championship because his team didn't advance. So he's actually a professional golfer as of this moment, playing on the PGA Tour as a sponsor invite at Colonial today.
That could be
So
strategic. That could be strategic, right? Like,
well, the way the points stack up, everybody's saying Brendan Valdez from Auburn is number two.
yeah,
And
I know
even
that's
if he
true.
wins the national title, he cannot surpass David. That's what the number geeks have said. So, but I don't think that's going to stop Brendan from trying to win the individual title. And he might have to go through his teammate, Jackson Coyven.
Mhm.
Jackson's won the last two events he's played, including the SEC individual title and the SEC championship. So I think Auburn is a strong team. Obviously, they're the defending champ. I just don't think they have a weak link. If you look at match play, anything can happen. As I said with earlier with the women, a coin flip. Sometimes in match play, who's going to win a match? But boy, there's not one guy on that Auburn team, whether it's Carson Baca, Josiah Gilbert, Ryan Eshelman, Billy Davis, younger brother of Anna Davis.
Yep.
Any of those guys end up in the lineup with Valdez and Coyven. I don't want to play them in match play. Auburn
No.
is a very dangerous team. They have to get to match play. They have to make the top
Yep.
15, the
Yep.
first cut, and then of course the top 8. I think they can do that. And there's another team that could be dangerous, Arizona State, with Ballester and Preston Summerhays on their team too. Very experienced guys. Ballester, of course, the U.S. Amateur champion. You'll see him in the U.S. Open at Oakmont in a couple of weeks. Very experienced players, stroke play and match play. So those are a couple of teams, Auburn and Arizona State. I think Oklahoma State with Coach Alan Bratton and new assistant coach Derek Ernst. Those guys know what they're doing in Stillwater. So Florida, the SEC champ, J.C. Deacon, the coach there. BYU, Virginia has Ben James. Florida State, of course, has Luke Clanton. So tons of things to watch this week in La Costa. I think Georgia Tech and Coach Bruce Hepler could make a run. Of course, they have last year's individual champion Hiroshi Tai,
Yep.
and Ben Reuter is a young kid from Europe who I think you'll be seeing on European Ryder Cup teams soon. Very talented,
You're a
big,
Ryder
strong
Cup team.
kid.
Oh,
I really think that Reuter, maybe not in 2 years at Adair Manor, but maybe in 4 years, he might be Ludwig Aubert's Ryder Cup partner.
oh,
Mark my words here. And of course, Vanderbilt has Gordon Sargent, who, as soon as he is done with his NCAA championship,
it's
will
going
get an
pro.
automatic PGA Tour card. So you're going to see a lot of Luke Clanton has a tour card. Gordon Sargent has a tour card. David Ford just turned pro this week because he's not in NCAA's. And of course, Brandon Valdez can try to win the individual title. And I think if he has a halfway decent NCAA's, he's at least going to lock up the number 2 spot in PGA Tour U and go
Yeah.
straight to the Corn Ferry. So a lot of talented guys getting ready to get started tomorrow in La Costa at the men's NCAA championship. We'll have a recap on that sometime soon. Scotty's going to be at the U.S. Open next week, so we may try to leave him alone during a major championship.
That's okay. But just one more thing on here. You know how many tournaments Northwestern won this year? One. Do you know after stroke play? Do you know how many shots they trailed Stanford by after the end of stroke play?
Well, Stanford was number 2. No, they were 19 shots ahead.
Yeah.
And I want to say maybe 30 shots.
Very good guess. 29 shots.
Yeah. Because it was a huge gap between first and second. And then I don't think anybody else was under par. I think third place was even par. Stanford and whoever finished second was under par. Yeah. Yeah, I want to say Oregon was like even par and they were the 3rd seed. Yeah, so do you think, based on their success in stroke play, that any of those young ladies will come straight out of the LPGA and have success? Well, you can complete your time like Rose Zhang is doing while competing on the LPGA. That is a big, big task, but she can go. Okay. What else does she have to prove? She almost went back to back at the Augusta National Women's Amateur. I think she's good. Who may come out the day she turns pro, she may be the longest hitter on the LPGA Tour. She bombs it. Yeah. Well, and Kira Romero, sophomore at Oregon, but competing in the Women's U.S. Open next week at Erin Hills. So that should be really interesting to see how she competes. And I'm sure you'll get a close look at her action at some point during the week. Well, and shout out to the folks in Tallahassee because at the moment they have the number 1 women's and men's amateur golfers on their campus, Lottie Wode and Luke Clanton. I'm not sure if that's ever been done before. Right. Mirabelle Ting. So incredible golf talents coming out of Tallahassee, Florida right now. And if you're around those kids, you might not see them very, very much longer on campus. It'll be interesting to see how many of those competitors, again, there is always a bit of turnover, and we've dealt with, the team that comes in as the defending national champ. I think LSU was the team that was here this year that had so much turnover from the team that Ingrid helped get to East Lake Cup. And then Ingrid and some of her other teammates, they didn't come to Atlanta in October because they were no longer in school. So we've dealt with a little bit of turnover from the teams, but it's a great seasoning experience. Well, I think Coach explained it. I introduced Coach to my family who came out to watch some of the East Lake Cup, and he said it's like losing Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, and Justin Jefferson all at the same time. And, those were all three incredible LSU football players who are now playing in the NFL. And he kind of compared those players. He said, that's to women's college golf. That's who those women were. So, and I'll let you decide which one Ingrid is, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, or Joe Burrow. I'll let you make the comparison there. She might be all three by the time she's said and done. I'm excited. I'm excited for you to get to Aaron Hills next week. I really am. Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah, you're only maybe not even a mile from the coast. It's kind of insulated just inside the PCH, but on I-5 there, but it's in a little canyon. But yeah, the ocean is right there. You're just far enough away where the marine layer really doesn't delay action like it does at Torrey and other seaside courses. But yeah, there's a lot of ocean breezes flowing through that canyon. All right. Well, that's all for today's show. LPGA has a new commissioner and NCAA wrap up. Thanks for joining us on Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram. Thanks for following us, all of you from the Back Nine Brief. Give us a listen, give us a like, and we'll keep giving you the world of golf from my side of the bag.